Hello students, welcome to Immienglish.com, the one-stop solution for ESL examination and immigration services. In this video we will learn about section 4 of listening module. So let's begin. Before we dive into details of this section, let us rewind the structure of section 4. As usual, there are always 10 questions in this section. And the most important thing about this section is that there are no breaks or pauses. You have to answer all the 10 questions from a single recording. That's the reason this section is the toughest in the entire listening module. Most of the time this section is always a lecture. The lecture can be related to any topic. There is no fixed criteria. One person will speak and give you tons of information from which you have to answer the questions. You can expect a speech, a university lecture, or a podcast in this section. Lastly, be ready for surprises in this section. You can have any types of questions like form filling, MCQs, short answers, sentence completion. It's hard to say what type of questions you can get. Now let's see an example to understand this section in a better way and notice why I call this section the toughest. Before the recording begins, let's see the example first. Pay close attention and read the instruction. I hope that now you have got used to with reading the instructions first. The instructions say that no more than 3 words. Now let's listen the recording and you should try to answer all the questions. Start.
Good morning and welcome to the university's open day and to our mini lecture from the Sports Studies Department. Now, the purpose of this lecture is twofold. One, we want you to experience a university lecture to give you a taste of what listening to a university lecture is like. And two, we want you to find out something about the Sports Studies program at this university. So feel free to ask any questions during the talk and I'll do my best to answer them. Right, so what does a course in sports studies involve? Well, you wouldn't be blamed for not knowing the answer to this question because sports studies as a discipline is still comparatively new, but it's a growing area and one which is now firmly established at our university. Now, there are 3 distinct strands to sports studies, and you'd need to choose fairly early on just which direction you wanted to follow. And I'll just run over these now. Firstly, we've got the sports psychology strand. Secondly, we've got the sports management strand. And last but not least, there's the sports physiology strand. So just to recap, there's sports psychology, sports management, and sports physiology. Let's look first at psychology. Now, the people who study sports psych want to work with top athletes, and they're looking at what will take those athletes that 1% extra. What makes them win? When all other things are equal, physically all other things are equal, they want to know what are the mental factors involved. The sports psychologist works closely with the athlete through his or her training program and becomes an integral part of the team. In fact, you could say that they play just as important a role as the coach. So if you're interested in what makes people win, this could be the area for you. Now, secondly, we've got the strand which I refer to as sports management. And this goes hand in hand with the area of sports marketing. So you might like to think of this area as having 2 branches, management and marketing. On the management side, we look at issues relating to the running of sports clubs, management of athletes, that sort of thing. But then on the other side, we've got sports marketing. And this is the side that interests me more, because here we will look at the market forces behind sport. Questions like, why do people spend their money on a football match or a tennis game rather than, say, on buying a CD or going to the cinema? What are those market forces? Sport used to just compete with sport. Nowadays, it competes with other leisure activities. The spectators go to sport to be entertained rather than out of loyalty to a team. They want to have an evening out, and they don't want the cheap seats anymore. They want good seats. They want entertainment. And the professional sportsmen and women respond to this without question. They are there to give a performance. They provide the entertainment. So in the marketing course, we address all these commercial issues and we look at how this hooks back into the management of sport. Now, the third branch of sports studies sometimes comes under another name and is also known as exercise science. And again here, we find that there are two distinct types of exercise science. The first is working very much at the macro level, what I call the huffing and puffing people. So this looks at fitness testing, body measurements, all that sort of thing. But the more interesting side of sports physiology, at least in my view, is the side that looks at the micro level, looking at cellular change. They're doing cellular research, looking at changes in body cells when the body is under stress. So that just about brings us to the end of our mini lecture for today. I hope you found it interesting. I look forward to seeing you all on our course next year. But feel free to come and talk to me if you want any more information. I'll be over at that notice board near the main entrance. Thank you very much.
Done. I hope you attempted all the 10 questions from the example. If not, then make appropriate guesses. As you already know that you should never leave the answer blank. Now let's check the solution and see how many correct answers you have. Before we check the solution, remember that this is the toughest section and there is less time to read the questions as well. So if you are not getting enough correct answers in this section, it's perfectly fine. No need to worry at all. Alright, let's check the solution. So from the recording we can say that the first two answers were fairly simple and not that hard to find. The first answer is a university lecture and the second is sports studies. Now from the recording the third answer was also easy to judge and it is management, sports management. The rest of the answers are divided into three groups. Now the hardest part of this section started from here. From here the information was really complex and too much information made it hard to extract the answer. The answer to the first question is top athletes because the speaker clearly mentioned this in the recording and after much information only gave the second answer, which is makes winner or people win. If you notice, the answer has variants. Now both the variants are correct. I hope you got this answer right. The first answer of the B group is market force. This was also clearly mentioned in the recording and another two answers were also easy, that is leisure activities and entertainment. However, if you notice that even if you missed out these answers, then also you can answer this question using common sense. Now in the last and the third group, the first answer, which is exercise science, was mentioned at the very beginning of the recording when the speaker started to address this group. The other answers were moderately tough. They are fitness testing for macro levels and cellular research for micro levels. Now to get these answers from the recording, the key words macro and micro clearly helped to identify the answers. Now after the completion of this section, you can understand that this section's question may not be that complex, but continuous information and no breaks or pauses along with short time to read the questions to make this section difficult. That's the reason I recommend my students to make the most mistake only in this section and try to be as accurate as possible in the first three sections. This way you will be able to secure maximum marks in the listening module without any difficulty. Now let's proceed and check some key points to remember in this section. Now I think every one of you understand that this section was toughest than all the other three sections. So be careful in this section and try to read all the questions as fast as possible. As there are no breaks in between in this section, you should start to read the questions as soon as you finish answering the section 3. This way you will get extra time to read the questions in the section 4. Now when you are reading the questions, try to read extremely fast or you can scan the questions as well. Both the approach can be done. You have to figure out what suits you best. Once again, remember that you should not leave any blank answers. Always make a guess using your common sense. No spelling mistakes, please. I hope you remember that. Lastly, follow the instruction and don't exceed the word limit for the answers. One more thing that I would like to add is that if you don't get any answer, then don't try to remember it while answering the questions. First let the recording finish and then try to remember if you can. This way you will be able to answer the other questions properly. Don't stick to just one question. You can ruin your entire section like this. So if you can't find any answer, then move on to the next question. That's all. This brings us to the end of section 4 in the listening module. I hope you have found this lecture informative. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe our YouTube channel and support us to bring you quality content and tips. See you in the next video. For any other questions, please raise a topic in the forum. The link is available in the description. Take care.